There is a message waiting for you from a hospital room. And it was not sent by accident. Your soulmate has been holding something inside for far too long, but today the fear of losing the chance to reach you became stronger than their fear of telling the truth. They asked someone close to them to make sure this message finds you. And what they want you to know could completely change the way you understand everything that happened between you. Listen carefully. Because this is not just another emotional moment. Your soulmate has been lying awake in that hospital bed thinking about the person they could never fully remove from their heart. While everyone around them was worried about their recovery, their mind kept returning to one name, yours. They remembered the conversations that ended too soon, the promises that were never completed, and the moment your connection was pulled apart before either of you truly understood what was happening. But something happened inside that hospital room that finally broke their silence. Someone asked them a simple question. If you could speak to only one person right now, who would it be? They did not hesitate. They did not mention the people everyone expected. They quietly said your name. The entire room changed after that answer because the people standing nearby suddenly realized that this connection had never disappeared. Your soulmate may have tried to hide it, deny it, or bury it beneath years of distance, but when everything else became uncertain, their heart still reached for you. And then they asked for something unexpected. They wanted a message written down exactly as they spoke it because they were afraid the words might never reach you otherwise. Their voice was weak, but what they said was powerful. Tell them I never stopped caring. Tell them there were things happening behind the scenes they never knew about. Tell them I made choices I regret because I believed something about them that was never true. That sentence shocked the person sitting beside the bed. Because your soulmate was not only talking about love anymore. They were talking about a secret. A secret connected to the reason the two of you were separated in the first place. For years, they believed you had willingly walked away. They believed you had chosen another direction, forgotten what you shared, and closed the door without looking back. That belief became the foundation of every painful decision they made afterward. But recently, they learned something that destroyed that entire story. Someone finally admitted that information had been kept from them. Messages were never delivered. Words were twisted. Certain conversations were intentionally hidden. Your soulmate discovered that while they were waiting for a sign from you, you may have been waiting for the exact same thing from them. Two people were hurting at the same time, each believing the other had chosen silence. When that truth reached them, they broke down. Not because they suddenly remembered you, they never truly forgot you. They broke down because they realized how much time had been lost believing something that may never have been true. Every year of distance suddenly looked different. Every unanswered question came rushing back. And from that hospital bed, your soulmate made one decision. If they were given another opportunity, they would no longer allow fear, pride, family pressure, or another person's manipulation to decide what happened between you. That is why this message is trying to reach you today. There is something else written at the bottom of it. Something the person delivering the message almost refused to reveal because your soulmate specifically asked that it only be shared when they knew you were ready to hear it. And those final words explain exactly what your soulmate plans to do when they leave that hospital room. Those final words were not a goodbye. They were a promise. Your soulmate told the person beside that hospital bed, "When I leave this room, I'm going to find the truth for myself. I'm done allowing other people to tell me what you felt, what you said, or why you disappeared. This time, I want to hear it directly from you." For the first time in a very long time, they are no longer protecting the story they were given. They are questioning everything. Every accusation. Every warning. Every conversation that pushed them farther away from you. And the deeper they look, the more they are beginning to understand that someone may have benefited from keeping the two of you apart. There was one name your soulmate mentioned quietly in that hospital room. A person they trusted. Someone who always seemed to know what was happening between you before your soulmate did. Someone who repeatedly told them not to contact you. Someone who insisted that you had moved on, that you no longer cared, and that reopening the past would only cause more pain. But now your soulmate has learned that this person may have known far more than they ever admitted. A nurse entered the room while your soulmate was speaking, and for a moment everyone became silent. But your soulmate refused to let the subject disappear again. They looked at the person holding the message and said, "Write this down too. I need them to know I'm finally seeing what happened." The next sentence was even harder. "I blamed you for years because blaming you was easier than accepting that someone I trusted may have lied to me." That realization has changed something inside them. The anger they once carried toward you is beginning to turn into regret. The distance they once defended is beginning to feel unbearable. And the memories they spent years trying to suppress are returning with a force they were not prepared for. They remembered the last time they saw you. They remembered something in your face that they misunderstood at the time. They thought you looked cold, detached, ready to leave. Now they wonder if what they saw was heartbreak. They remembered one message from you that seemed strangely incomplete. At the time, they assumed you simply had nothing more to say. But now they have started asking whether part of that message was removed before it ever reached them. And there is another detail that is disturbing them even more. Someone recently brought an old envelope to the hospital. It had been kept inside a family drawer for years. Your name was written on the front. Your soulmate had never seen it before. When they asked where it came from, nobody in the room wanted to answer. One family member immediately tried to change the subject. Another walked out. But your soulmate demanded that the envelope be opened. Inside was something connected to you. Something dated from the exact period when your relationship was falling apart. The moment your soulmate read the first few lines, their hands began to shake because those words proved that the version of the past they had believed for years was incomplete. You had not simply disappeared. You had tried to explain something. You had tried to reach them. And someone made sure those words never reached the person they were meant for. Your soulmate stared at that old message for a long time before saying anything. Then tears filled their eyes, and they whispered, "How different would everything have been if I had seen this then?" Nobody could answer, because everyone in that room understood what the letter meant. Years of pain may have been built around one hidden truth. Your soulmate then asked for the hospital message to be changed. They no longer wanted it to simply say that they missed you. They wanted you to know that they finally had proof. Proof that something was hidden. Proof that your separation was not as simple as they had been told. And proof that someone close to them may have deliberately stood between the two of you. But the envelope contained one final page. A page your soulmate almost could not bring themselves to read. Because written near the bottom was the name of the person who had received your message first. And when your soulmate saw that name, they immediately realized the betrayal had come from much closer than they ever imagined. The name written at the bottom of that page was not the name of a stranger. It belonged to someone your soulmate had trusted for years. Someone who had comforted them when your connection fell apart. Someone who had listened while your soulmate cried, questioned everything, and blamed you for walking away. And now the same person appeared to have known that you had tried to reach out all along. Your soulmate read the name again because they refused to believe it the first time. Then they looked across the hospital room and asked one question: why would they keep this from me? Nobody answered. That silence was louder than any confession. Your soulmate immediately understood that this was no innocent misunderstanding. Someone had made a deliberate choice to hide something that could have changed the direction of both your lives. And suddenly, memories that once seemed meaningless began connecting together. The warnings. The interrupted phone calls. The messages that never received replies. The strange changes in people's behavior whenever your name was mentioned. Even the pressure your soulmate felt to move forward with another life before they were emotionally ready. For years, they thought everyone around them was trying to protect them. Now they are beginning to wonder whether someone was protecting a secret instead. The person sitting beside the hospital bed finally admitted that there had been arguments about you behind closed doors. Your soulmate had never been told about them. Certain family members believed your connection was too strong, too difficult to control, and too likely to change plans that had already been made for your soulmate's future. That confession hit harder than anything else. Because your soulmate suddenly realized that the separation may not have happened because love disappeared. It may have happened because other people were afraid of what would happen if the two of you chose each other. They turned toward the window and stayed silent for several minutes. Then they whispered, "I spent all these years believing they abandoned me." Their voice broke. And maybe they were fighting for me while I was being told to forget them. That was the moment everything changed. Your soulmate no longer wanted sympathy. They wanted answers. They asked for their phone. They searched through old contacts, old photographs, old saved conversations, anything that might still contain a piece of the truth. And buried deep inside an old backup, they found something they had forgotten existed. A voice message. It was from the same period when everything between you collapsed. The message had never been fully opened. Your soulmate pressed play. At first there was only silence. Then came a voice they had not heard in years. Your voice. The second they heard it, your soulmate covered their mouth and started crying. Because you were not angry in that recording. You were not saying goodbye. You were begging them not to believe what other people were saying. You were trying to explain that something had happened behind your back too. And then you said one sentence that completely destroyed the version of the past your soulmate had carried for years. If you ever hear that I chose to leave you, please know that isn't the truth. Your soulmate stopped the recording. They could not breathe normally for a moment. The entire room went silent. Everything they had believed was collapsing at once. They played it again. This time they listened until the end. And near the final seconds of that recording, you mentioned the same person whose name appeared on the hidden page. Now there was no way to dismiss it as coincidence. The envelope. The missing messages. The old recording. The same name appearing in all three places. Your soulmate finally had enough to confront the person they once trusted most. But before they could make the call, someone entered the hospital room unexpectedly. The moment that person saw the open envelope on the bed, their face changed. They immediately asked, "Who gave you that?" Your soulmate looked directly at them and said nothing. Because standing in the doorway was the exact person whose name appeared at the bottom of the hidden page. And what they confessed next was far worse than simply hiding one message from you. The person standing in the doorway froze when they saw the envelope. For several seconds, nobody moved. Your soulmate held the old letter tightly and asked, "How long did you know?" The person tried to deny everything at first. They said the envelope had been misplaced. They claimed too much time had passed to remember exactly what happened. But your soulmate was no longer willing to accept another convenient explanation. They placed the letter, the old voice message, and the written hospital message beside each other. Three pieces of the same story. Three pieces pointing toward the same person. Then your soulmate said, "I lost years believing you didn't want me. If you knew that wasn't true, tell me now." That question finally broke them. The person sat down and admitted that your message had reached them first. They admitted they had read enough to understand that you were trying to save the relationship. But they never delivered it. Your soulmate's eyes filled with disbelief. Why? The answer was painful. Because at that time, people around your soulmate had already decided what their future should look like. They believed you would interfere with those plans. They believed your connection was too powerful, too emotional, and too difficult to separate once the truth was known. So they chose for both of you. They convinced themselves that hiding one message would eventually make the feelings disappear. But it did not stop with one message. The confession continued. There had been another phone call from you, another letter, and one attempt you made to meet your soulmate face to face. Each time, someone stepped in before your soulmate could know. The person in that hospital room finally admitted, "We kept telling them you had moved on because we thought eventually they would believe it." Your soulmate stared at them in shock. That single word changed everything. Because this was no longer about one person making one terrible decision. More than one person had been involved. Someone else had helped keep the truth buried. Someone else had watched your soulmate suffer and remained silent. And according to the confession, that second person had been much closer to your soulmate than anyone expected. Your soulmate demanded the name. The person hesitated. Then they said, "Before I tell you, there's something else you need to understand." The reason everyone was so desperate to keep you apart wasn't only about your relationship. Your soulmate's expression changed. "What are you talking about?" The person lowered their voice. "There was something your family believed would happen if you chose them." Suddenly the room felt different. This secret had gone beyond hidden messages. There had been a private agreement. A decision made without your soulmate's permission. And your name was directly connected to it. Your soulmate immediately asked to see whatever proof still existed. At first, the person claimed there was nothing left. But after more pressure, they admitted that one document had survived. It had been kept inside an old family file. And the document contained signatures. Your soulmate's family had apparently made a promise concerning their future years ago, and you were the one person who threatened to destroy that arrangement simply by being loved. Your soulmate could barely process what they were hearing. They had spent years thinking your relationship failed naturally. Now they were learning that people may have actively worked to make it fail. The hospital room became tense as your soulmate asked for the document to be brought immediately. But before anyone could leave, the person revealed something even more devastating. They said, "There's one reason we were terrified you would eventually find you again." Your soulmate asked, "What reason?" The person looked at the old letter and whispered, "Because if you ever spoke directly, you would both realize the same lie had been told to each of you." Your soulmate's face went pale. The lie had not only been told about you. You had apparently been told something false about your soulmate too. Something designed to make you believe there was no reason to keep fighting. And then came the confession that finally pushed your soulmate over the edge. Years ago, someone had deliberately told you that your soulmate had chosen another person and wanted absolutely nothing more to do with you. It was never your soulmate's message. They had never said those words. Your soulmate began crying because they finally understood what may have happened. Both of you were waiting. Both of you were hurting. Both of you were being told the other had already moved on. Two people who might have fought for each other were separated by the same carefully constructed lie. Your soulmate immediately said, "I need to speak to them, not tomorrow. Not after leaving the hospital. Now." But just as they reached for the phone, the person who had confessed grabbed their hand and said, "Before you call you need to see the document." Because there was one signature at the bottom that your soulmate would recognize instantly. And when they revealed whose signature it was, your soulmate realized the person behind the separation was someone they had loved and trusted almost their entire life. Your soulmate stared at the signature for what felt like forever. They knew that handwriting. They had seen it on birthday cards, family papers, and important documents their entire life. It belonged to someone they never imagined could have played a role in destroying what existed between you and them. Their hands began to tremble. No, this can't be real. But nobody in the hospital room denied it. That silence gave them the answer before anyone spoke. The person whose signature appeared on that private agreement was someone your soulmate had defended for years. Someone they trusted whenever doubts about you were planted in their mind. Someone who repeatedly said, "I'm only trying to protect you." Now your soulmate finally understood what those words may have really meant. Protection had become control. Concern had become interference. And love had been used as an excuse to make decisions your soulmate never agreed to. They looked at the person who brought the document and asked, did they know about the letters too? The answer came slowly. Yes. Your soulmate closed their eyes. Did they know you were trying to reach me? Another painful pause. Yes. That second answer broke something inside them. Because now there was no misunderstanding left to hide behind. Someone they deeply trusted had known the truth. They knew you had not simply disappeared. They knew you had tried to explain. They knew your soulmate was waiting for answers. And still, they allowed both of you to believe the worst about each other. Your soulmate pressed their hand against their chest and whispered. All this time, the person beside the bed tried to calm them, but your soulmate pulled away. No. I need to hear all of it. And that is when the full reason behind the private agreement finally came out. Years ago, your soulmate's family had already made plans involving money, reputation, property, and a future relationship they believed would benefit everyone. Then you entered your soulmate's life. And suddenly those plans became uncertain. Because your soulmate was no longer willing to live according to somebody else's expectations, they were beginning to make decisions based on what they felt. Based on love. Based on you. That frightened certain people more than your soulmate ever realized. So the agreement was made quietly. The goal was simple but cruel. Create enough doubt between the two of you that eventually one of you would walk away. Your soulmate looked horrified. You planned our separation? The person answering could barely meet their eyes. It wasn't supposed to become this big. That sentence made your soulmate angry. You stole years from us. And you're telling me it wasn't supposed to become this big? For the first time since entering the hospital, their voice became strong. They were no longer speaking like someone confused by the past. They were speaking like someone finally ready to confront it. Then another detail emerged. The person with the familiar signature had not only approved the plan. They had personally delivered one of the false messages about you. They were the one who told your soulmate that you had chosen someone else. And according to the confession, they knew at the time that it was not true. Your soulmate turned away, tears falling silently. Because they remembered that exact day. They remembered sitting alone afterward. They remembered deleting your number. They remembered telling themselves they would never beg someone who no longer wanted them. And now they knew that decision had been based on a lie. Your soulmate immediately asked for their phone again. This time nobody tried to stop them. They opened an old picture of you that had somehow survived every attempt to erase the past. They stared at it and whispered, "What did they tell you about me?" That question became more important than everything else. Because if your soulmate had been deceived, they knew you probably had been too. So they demanded the rest of the evidence. The person beside the bed reached into the file and pulled out one final folded sheet. Unlike the others, this page was addressed directly to you. Your soulmate had never seen it. The page contained a message that was supposedly written on their behalf years ago. But your soulmate immediately said, "I never wrote this." The message told you to stop calling, to stop waiting, to forget everything. And worst of all, it claimed your soulmate had chosen another future and never wanted to see you again. Your soulmate's face completely changed. Because they suddenly understood why you may have disappeared. You had not given up without a fight. You had been handed what looked like a final rejection. A rejection that never came from your soulmate at all. They gripped the fake message and said, "They made you believe I rejected you." Nobody answered. Then your soulmate said something nobody expected. "I don't care who gets angry anymore. I don't care what agreement was made. I don't care what anyone planned for my life. I'm telling you the truth myself." They unlocked the phone. Their fingers hovered over your name. After all those years, after all the lies, after all the silence, they were finally ready to reach directly toward you. But before they could make the call, the hospital door opened again. An older member of the family stepped inside. The moment they saw the document in your soulmate's hand, they stopped cold. Your soulmate looked straight at them and asked, "Did you know?" The older family member began crying before answering. And then they revealed something nobody else in that room knew. The private agreement was not the beginning of the separation. Someone had started interfering with your love story even earlier. Long before the hidden letters. Long before the false messages. Long before your soulmate believed you had walked away. And according to them, there was one final piece of proof hidden outside that hospital room that could reveal exactly who started everything. And why they were so afraid of you becoming part of your soulmate's future. The final piece of proof was brought into the hospital room less than an hour later. It was an old handwritten record that had been hidden inside a family file for years. Your soulmate opened it slowly, already knowing that whatever was inside could change everything. And it did. The truth was finally undeniable. The separation had never begun because you stopped loving them. It began because someone close to the family feared what would happen if your soulmate chose you over the future that had already been planned for them. That person started the first rumor. They twisted one conversation, then another. Soon, several people became involved, believing they were protecting the family from conflict. But every new lie created another wound. Your soulmate looked around the hospital room and said, "You all kept deciding what was best for me, but nobody ever asked what I wanted." Nobody could argue with that. Then they looked at the fake message that had been sent to you years ago. Their voice softened. They thought I rejected them because of this. The older family member nodded through tears. And your soulmate finally understood the entire tragedy. While they were waiting for you to return, you had been given a message telling you never to come back. While you were trying to heal from rejection, your soulmate was being told that you had willingly abandoned them. Both of you had been carrying pain created by other people. Your soulmate closed their eyes and whispered, "We lost years because neither of us knew the truth." But this time, they refused to let regret become another excuse for silence. They picked up the phone. Nobody stopped them. They found the contact they had been afraid to touch for years. Your name was still there. For several seconds, their finger hovered over it. Then they smiled through tears. "I don't know what happens after this," they said. "But they deserve the truth directly from me." The call was made. Whether you answer immediately or whether that conversation takes time, one thing has already changed forever. Your soulmate is no longer allowing another person to speak for their heart. They are no longer blaming you for a story they now know was manipulated. And they are no longer pretending that what existed between you meant nothing. Before leaving the hospital, they asked that one final message be delivered to you exactly as they spoke it. "I'm sorry I believed what other people told me instead of finding the courage to ask you myself. I'm sorry for every year you may have believed I stopped caring. I didn't know what they told you. I didn't know how hard you tried to reach me. But now I know. And if there is still even one unfinished conversation between us, I want to have it honestly." Your soulmate is not asking you to erase the past. They know some wounds cannot disappear in a single conversation. They are asking for something much simpler. The chance to finally speak without interference. Without family pressure. Without hidden messages. Without another person standing between you and the truth. And as your soulmate prepared to leave that hospital room, they folded your old letter carefully and placed it beside their heart. Because after all those years, the message they should have received long ago had finally reached them. And this time, their answer was clear. They never wanted the story between you to end because of somebody else's lie. Now the truth is finally in their hands. The next choice belongs only to the two people whose voices should have mattered from the beginning. You. And the person who never truly stopped carrying your name in their heart.